Hey, what do you think about meeting up? I really want to see you in person.
Sorry, but I don't do online meetups. I hope you don't take it personally. We can still play games and speak to each other, though.
Oh, I get it. Sorry for asking. I just really thought you were cool, but I understand.
After that day, I trusted him completely. I didn't have any friends in real life. All I had was my online community, and James was different from any other guy that I had ever met online, especially being a gamer. Once they find out you're a girl, they try to flirt or hit on you. But not James. He was different. So different, in fact, that he began telling me things I had never heard anyone tell me. He told me his secrets and his sad past. He opened up to me about his childhood, and I couldn't help but feel bad for him. For one, he was a foster child, and two, he was always mistreated. But what surprised me most was how he told me that he didn't care about it anymore, that he had buried those memories and didn't even feel them anymore. And then I wondered if he could turn other feelings off, like empathy, joy, sadness, or love. So the more I spoke with him, the more I wanted to meet him and figure out why I was so drawn to him. It wasn't until I received my first birthday message from him where things really picked up. Aside from his happy birthday message, his second message was him asking me to meet up again, and this time, I would be able to because I was an adult. At first, I was going to message that I couldn't, but then the familiar itch of wanting to know who he really was still there. Something was off about him. Something special? I could never really pinpoint it, and yet I trusted him fully for some odd reason. Yes, I was nervous. And yes, I had no clue what was going to happen. It was my first time ever doing this. I was meeting him in the day, so what could go wrong? When I finally saw him for the first time, it was nothing like you would have thought. It was perfect. He was perfect. It was like we had been friends our entire life, with every conversation continuing from one to another, and our humor matched exactly. We ended up walking for miles and talked for hours, and truthfully, I never wanted it to end, and I didn't stop smiling that whole night. So I agreed to meet him a second time. Only this time, he wanted to take me on an evening date. It was Halloween, and we went to an amusement park. We got so much closer that we held each other's hands and cuddled in the dark. I didn't know what we were, but I just felt understood and safe with him. I trusted him, and I didn't want it to end. So when it was time to leave the park, he decided to stop by a bar. It was my first time in one, and it was so full of people we could barely get through the crowd, but we managed to steal a small table. We just kept laughing the entire night, and even though I thought the drink tasted awful, James made it seem so fun, so I kept sipping and sipping. Where am I? How long have I been sleeping? This isn't my house. I don't know where this is. As I looked to my side, I could see a clock read 4 a.m. And when I looked to the other side of where I was laying, I saw James sleeping on his side. I could feel the panic rising in my stomach. The first thing I did was get off that bed, but the second I stood up, completely without any clothes, I started looking for them, and when I took a step forward, I fell on my own weight, completely feeling sore. The next thing I asked myself was, what happened last night? I stumbled my way to the bathroom, grabbing the first shirt I saw, needing to cover my body. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw mascara smeared under my eyes, my concealer faded and smudged. When I looked at my neck, I could see huge purple all over my chest. I couldn't even think about what had happened to me. I just wanted to go home, so I ran. I hailed down the first taxi I could find, jumping in front and begging the driver to take me home. He took one look at me and told me to get in. I cried the whole way home, and when the taxi driver asked me if I was okay, I couldn't answer him and gave him the money, and locked myself in my room. When I gathered my thoughts, I could only remember fragments of what had happened. One was of us laughing in the bar. The second was the momentary flashes of James pulling me into his room and me trying to push him away, but he wouldn't stop. And when I focused in on those memories, the next that came to mind was us on the bed. It was like I was reliving someone else's life, completely aware of everything going on, but powerless to make any change. As lost as I was, I didn't want to believe anything that I had remembered. I couldn't. I knew James. He was a sweet guy, and drink can change people to be someone they weren't. I knew this was a one-off mistake on both of our ends, and I convinced myself there was no way he meant this, and I needed to hear his side of the story. And just like that, his name appeared on my phone, and I couldn't help but answer. At first, James apologized, saying how sorry he was for what had happened and begged me to meet up with him so he could explain. I knew I shouldn't have, but something in me made me believe he was telling the truth, so I agreed. I felt sick to my stomach as I walked up to his apartment, and when he opened the door, it all disappeared. "Hey, how are you? I want to apologize for what happened last night. We were having such a good time. You seemed like you wanted to come back to my place, and one thing just led to another, and then you were gone. Yeah, we both took it kind of far. But did it really happen? Did we, His silence gave me the answers, and I snapped. "Why? How, James? Why would you do that to me? You knew I had never done it before." And then, it was like his personality had flipped, and he pushed me onto the floor. When James was done, he kissed my tear-stained cheek and went into the bathroom. I couldn't move until my eyes found his computer screen. On it was a folder with my name. Me? I dragged myself to the computer where I found out that he was 35 years old, not the 25 he told me he was. And when I clicked onto another folder, hundreds of images popped up. All were of me. Everything from our gaming sessions to pictures of me sleeping that night. Absolutely everything. I grabbed my things and ran towards the door. I couldn't stand to stay there another minute longer. I was so stupid and naive. I went there hoping to talk to James and think it was all a mistake. I wanted to believe a person wasn't capable of such things. I had convinced myself that he didn't mean it. Worst of all, I couldn't tell a single person because not a single person knew the truth about anything I was doing. I felt trapped, and I felt like I had done this to myself. The months after I stopped talking to James was the hardest time of my life. A lot of my gaming friends would constantly ask me where he was and why he didn't join our raids anymore, but I couldn't bring myself to tell them the truth. I just pretended that he left without saying goodbye to me too. But in reality, James kept trying to contact me by sending messages of how in love he was with me and how I couldn't leave him like his foster family had. It made me feel even worse, and honestly, I felt guilty for his rough childhood and blamed myself for not being able to help him become a better person. I had to convince myself that it was not my responsibility to fix his life or the wrongs that happened to him. The most difficult part was telling myself that when someone has wronged every part of you, that none of it was your fault no matter how it is framed. It took a long time, but slowly I have come to accept that sometimes really crappy things happen, and when they are in your control, you need to make the right decisions and think about yourself before someone else. There is nothing selfish when it comes to your safety, your life, your body. I haven't recovered completely, and I don't know if I ever will. The biggest regret that I have to this day is not going to the police or telling someone, but by telling you guys my story, I hope one day I can find the courage to do it.